If you want to know how a man really feels about you, don't just listen to what he says, watch what he does. When a guy is crazy about you, there's this shift in his behavior that starts to feel instinctive, and he probably doesn't even realize he's doing it. The truth is, men reveal their feelings in subtle psychological ways, and when you know what to look for, it becomes crystal clear. Today, I'm going to give you 5 psychological patterns men fall into when they're falling for you hard. These aren't games. They're real, emotionally driven behaviors that show he's not just interested, he's hooked. When a man is genuinely crazy about you, one of the most revealing psychological behaviors he unconsciously exhibits is mirroring. This goes far beyond just copying your gestures or posture. Mirroring is a subtle, deeply ingrained human behavior that kicks in when we feel emotionally connected to someone. It's the mind's way of saying, I'm in sync with you, I'm tuned in. You'll notice that when you laugh, he laughs, not just because something's funny, but because your joy brings him joy. If you shift your tone of voice, he may unknowingly adjust his to match yours. When you use certain words or expressions, those same words start slipping into his vocabulary, as if the two of you are slowly building your own rhythm, your own language. It's important to understand that mirroring isn't something people consciously decide to do to impress someone. In fact, most men won't even realize they're doing it. That's what makes it so powerful. When a guy is attracted to someone on a deeper level, not just physically, but emotionally, his brain starts syncing up with hers in subtle ways. He starts reflecting your energy, your style, even your pace. If you're animated and expressive, he becomes more expressive. If you speak slowly and thoughtfully, he may slow down his speech to match. This isn't imitation. It's attunement. It's the psychological pull of someone who wants to feel close to you, wants to understand you, wants to be accepted by you on an instinctive level. It doesn't just stop at body language either. You'll see it creep into his decision-making. Let's say you've shared that you love hiking, or that you're passionate about a certain type of music, or that you've been working hard on a personal goal. Suddenly, he's into hikes, playlists that align with yours, or offering support for your goals in ways that show he's listening and aligning. He begins to shape his world to include yours. That's a form of psychological mirroring too. Not because he's pretending to be someone he's not, but because being around you makes him want to move closer to who you are. He starts incorporating aspects of your interests, your values, your lifestyle, not for the sake of performance, but because emotional attachment naturally pushes us toward alignment with the people we care about most. This kind of mirroring becomes especially noticeable in conversations. If you pay close attention, you'll hear him echoing certain phrases you use, or picking up on the emotional tones you set. When you share something vulnerable or intimate, he doesn't just listen, he mirrors the depth of that emotion. He's right there with you, showing empathy not just with his words, but through his posture, his eyes, his tone. His body subtly leans in, his expressions soften, and he creates emotional space for you. It's like his whole presence adapts to meet yours. This is the kind of responsiveness that shows he's not just casually attracted, he's emotionally invested. Your experience becomes his experience, even in micro moments. Sometimes mirroring also appears during group interactions. Watch what happens when you're in a social setting. Does he angle his body toward you even when others are speaking? Does his energy subtly shift based on your reactions? If you seem uncomfortable, does his mood mirror that concern? If you're lighting up with enthusiasm, does his face reflect that same excitement? These are nonverbal cues that happen before he even thinks to respond. They reveal how deeply he's attuned to your state of being. It's not about controlling a room anymore. It's about staying in tune with you. What's fascinating is that this kind of mirroring often leads to emotional safety and bonding. You start to feel seen, heard, and emotionally matched. This isn't a coincidence. When someone mirrors us, we feel validated. We feel like we matter. And whether he realizes it or not, the man who's crazy about you wants you to feel that way. His brain and heart are working overtime to create that connection. Mirroring, in this sense, becomes a silent form of affection. It's him stepping into your world without needing to announce it. When a man is truly crazy about you, something subtle starts to shift in the way he presents himself around you. He begins to seek your validation. This isn't always loud or obvious. It doesn't look like begging for compliments or constantly fishing for praise. It's often far more understated than that, but make no mistake, he's trying to win your approval in ways he may not even consciously understand. There's a psychological mechanism at play here, one that says, your opinion of me matters more than almost anyone else's. And once that switch flips, his behavior starts to reflect it in multiple areas of his life. You might notice he becomes more mindful of the way he looks around you. He'll put extra thought into what he wears, how he smells, how his hair looks, even how he stands. This isn't just about physical attraction, it's about impressing you. It's about making sure that when you see him, you see a version of him he feels proud of and hopes you'll admire. That need for your approval becomes a quiet driver behind his grooming, his wardrobe choices, even his posture. He's no longer dressing for himself. He's dressing with you in mind. And again, he might not even realize he's doing it. That's the beauty of these subtle psychological shifts. They're not calculated, they're emotional. Beyond appearance, it spills into the way he speaks and acts. Around you, he's suddenly more conscious of his words. He wants to come across as thoughtful, competent, confident, all the things he believes you'll respect and value. You might notice him subtly highlighting certain qualities like his ambition, his emotional intelligence, or his sense of humor. It's not that he's being fake, it's that he's curating his best self when he's with you. There's a deep-rooted desire to earn your admiration, to feel like he's good enough in your eyes. So he'll talk about his goals, not to brag, but to show you that he's a man with direction. He'll share his thoughts on emotional topics, not to manipulate, but to show that he has depth. These moments are driven by that internal voice saying, I want her to see the best of me. Another way this validation seeking shows up is through how much weight he gives to your opinions. If you give him feedback, even casual or joking feedback, you'll see it land in a different way. If you compliment something he's wearing, you might notice that item appears more often. If you mention you like a guy who's passionate about something, suddenly he's opening up more about what excites him. If you casually mention a book, movie, or idea, he takes note. He remembers what you say because he values your perspective more than others. He may even change a habit or improve something about himself, and when he does, he's often hoping you'll notice. He wants to feel like he's making an impact on you, that he's winning points not just with effort, but with growth. This need for validation also extends to the way he reacts to your reactions. If he tells a joke and you laugh, that lands in a deeper place than if anyone else laughed. If you're impressed by something he did, that moment lingers longer in his memory. If he senses disappointment or disinterest from you, even subtly, it affects him more deeply than you'd think. Because when a guy is emotionally invested, your approval, or lack of it, can feel like a measure of his own worth. It's not always rational, but it's real. He starts internalizing the idea that if you're happy with him, then he's doing something right. If you're unimpressed or withdrawn, he starts scanning for how he can improve. Again, this isn't because he lacks confidence. In fact, confident men often seek validation just as much. They just do it more skillfully. The point isn't about insecurity, it's about emotional investment. One of the clearest signs this psychological shift has taken place is when he starts competing with himself in your presence. You'll notice that he wants to be better than he was last time you saw him. He may bring you deeper conversations, more thoughtful gestures, or show up for you in small but meaningful ways, all because he's silently measuring his success by how you respond to him. He wants to be someone you admire. He wants to feel like he's rising in your world, and that desire fuels his behavior, often more than he realizes. When a man is deeply into you, one of the most telling psychological behaviors he begins to display is the creation of inside jokes and shared language. This isn't just about being funny or clever, it's about building something exclusive between the two of you, something only you understand. It's his way of creating a small world where just the two of you exist. This type of shared language becomes a kind of private universe, one that makes the bond feel more intimate, more real, and more emotionally secure. When a guy starts doing this, he's not just being playful, he's subconsciously creating emotional closeness through familiarity and repetition. You might start to notice him calling back to a silly moment the two of you shared, turning it into a phrase or expression that keeps reappearing. It could be a nickname he gives you based on something you said, or a little gesture he repeats because it made you laugh once. It could even be a made-up word that only makes sense to the two of you. These things might seem trivial, but psychologically, they're incredibly meaningful. What's really happening here is he's creating emotional shortcuts, quick ways to re-establish the connection every time you interact. Instead of starting from zero, you're always picking up from where your private story left off. That's powerful. This kind of communication makes you feel like partners in something, even if you haven't defined the relationship yet. It gives you shared memories, private references, and small rituals that begin to create a sense of us. The beauty is that it doesn't have to be grand or serious. In fact, the smaller and sillier it is, the more emotionally effective it becomes. That one word that always makes you laugh, that weird dance he does when he's trying to be goofy, that phrase he uses that reminds you of your first date. All of it is emotional glue. It makes you feel chosen because it's clear he doesn't do this with just anyone. These aren't stock lines or generic jokes. They're tailored, they're specific, they're yours. You'll also notice that he starts remembering the small details about your preferences, your quirks, and your sense of humor. And he folds those into the shared language he's building with you. If you once made a joke about hating Mondays, he might text you a funny meme every Monday morning. If you joked about how you can never finish your coffee before it gets cold, he might start teasing you every time he sees a half-full cup in your hand. It's affectionate, it's personalized, and it shows that he's paying attention to you in a way that goes beyond surface-level interest. He's using humor and language not just to connect, but to reinforce how closely he's attuned to who you are. Psychologically, this behavior also serves another important purpose. It reduces emotional distance. Inside jokes and shared language are like secret codes. They create a space where it's safe to be playful, where vulnerability becomes less scary because it's wrapped in warmth and humor. For many men, especially those who struggle to express deeper feelings directly, this becomes a safe and emotionally rich way to say, "I care about you. I notice you. I want to keep building this thing with you." It's communication without pressure, affection without a declaration, and yet it's just as impactful, if not more so, than a big romantic gesture. Even in moments of stress or disagreement, this kind of shared language can act as an anchor, a joke he brings up to break the tension, a phrase that reminds you both of a lighter time. These things create emotional continuity. They say, "Hey, we're still in this together." So when a man starts building this kind of emotional shorthand with you, what he's really doing is investing. He's laying down a foundation of connection that he can return to again and again, and he's hoping you'll return to it too. You might also start to see him test out new expressions or behaviors just to see if you'll latch onto them. He'll say something quirky and watch your face. If you laugh, if you repeat it back, if you reference it later, that's his green light. That's him realizing he's struck gold with you emotionally. And once that happens, it becomes part of your dynamic. These little verbal cues, inside jokes, and private references become part of how he connects to you day after day. They make you feel remembered, included, special, because that's exactly what you are to him when he's creating a world in which only the two of you truly belong. When a man is genuinely crazy about you, something instinctive begins to take over, a subtle yet unmistakable urge to protect. This isn't about grand heroic gestures or outdated notions of masculinity. It's about the quiet ways he positions himself as a safe space for you. You start to notice that he looks out for your comfort, your well-being, and even your peace of mind. And it's not because he thinks you're incapable or helpless, quite the opposite. It's because he values you deeply, and when a man values someone, his protective instincts naturally kick in. This kind of protection is less about physical defense and more about emotional presence, practical support, and being attuned to the little things that matter to you. You might notice that he becomes more aware of your surroundings when you're together. If you're walking down a crowded street, he might instinctively guide you to the inside of the sidewalk. If you're in a noisy place and seem overwhelmed, he'll start looking for a quieter corner. If someone speaks over you or interrupts you in a group setting, he subtly shifts to make sure your voice gets heard. He's not doing this because he's trying to show off. He's doing it because your comfort has suddenly become a priority in his mind. He's watching for anything that might throw you off balance, and when he senses it, his natural impulse is to step in and stabilize things, not in an overbearing way, but in a grounded, supportive one. This protective nature often reveals itself in how he handles your emotions too. When you're upset, anxious, or stressed, he doesn't brush it off or change the subject. He slows down, he tunes in, he listens more intently. Even if he doesn't know exactly what to say, he stays present. That in itself is a form of protection, emotional steadiness. It's him showing you, without words, that he's not going to run when things get uncomfortable, that your emotional experience matters enough for him to stay, to hold space, and to try, even if he's not perfect at it. That consistency, that willingness to be emotionally reliable, is one of the clearest signs a man is genuinely invested. Protection can also show up in practical ways. If you mention you're not feeling well, he remembers and checks in on you. If your car breaks down, he's the one offering to help or at least make sure you're safe. If you have a big meeting or a stressful day ahead, he finds ways to offer encouragement or even just gives you the space you need to focus. It's not always dramatic or obvious. Sometimes it's in the form of a short, thoughtful message or a small gesture you didn't ask for, but that shows he's paying attention. He's looking for ways to lighten your load, to give you one less thing to worry about. That's a subtle but powerful form of protection, showing up when it counts. Another key sign is how he reacts when someone or something disrespects you. Even if it's minor, you'll see a shift in his demeanor. His body might tense slightly, his voice might change, his attention zeroes in. He doesn't need to make a scene or confront anyone to show that he's on your side, but he'll make it known through his posture, his tone, and his energy that he doesn't tolerate anyone diminishing you. He sees your value, and when someone threatens that, even in small ways, it registers with him. That reaction doesn't come from ego, it comes from care. It's the unspoken message, I've got you. Sometimes this protective instinct shows up in the way he tries to anticipate your needs. He starts noticing patterns. If you get cold easily, he remembers to bring a jacket or offers his. If you get quiet when you're tired, he begins to pick up on it without you saying anything. If he knows you have a tendency to overextend yourself, he might gently remind you to rest or offer to take something off your plate. These are micro protections, little ways he's watching over you without being asked. Not because he thinks you can't handle things on your own, but because he wants to be a source of comfort, safety, and ease in your life. Even in his planning and decision-making, you'll notice he starts factoring you in more naturally, not just out of politeness, but because he wants to make sure you're okay with what's happening. He'll ask for your opinion before making a plan, or consider how a certain choice might affect you. This is how protection starts to blend with partnership. It's not about controlling you. It's about holding space for you. It's about wanting you to feel secure in his presence, not just physically, but emotionally, mentally, and even spiritually. When a man's in this place, it's not about showing off how strong he is. It's about creating an environment where you feel strong, safe, and seen just by being with him. When a man is truly crazy about you, one of the most revealing psychological behaviors is how much he prioritizes your happiness. It becomes something he actively tracks, not just in big moments, but in the tiniest ways. He starts to notice what lights you up, what stresses you out, what makes you feel relaxed, and what brings you joy. And once he figures that out, he begins to subtly shape his actions around it. It's not performative. He's not doing it to win points or manipulate your emotions. He does it because your happiness starts to genuinely affect his happiness. Your smile becomes his reward. Your comfort becomes his concern. That emotional investment starts to guide the choices he makes around you. You'll see this in everyday things. He'll remember the small details you've shared, like how you take your coffee, the snack you love after a long day, the kind of music that lifts your mood, and he'll act on it, not with a big announcement, but with thoughtful gestures that show he's been paying attention. He'll send you something that made him think of you, plan a date that reflects your interests, or even adjust his schedule to align with yours just to make things easier. These aren't grand romantic statements. They're quiet, consistent signals that your emotional state matters to him. What's powerful is that this behavior isn't about agreement or always saying yes. It's not about being a people pleaser. It's about caring enough to create an experience where you feel valued, supported, and genuinely seen. He wants to contribute positively to your life. So when you're happy, he relaxes. When you're down, he leans in. Not to fix everything, but to make sure you don't feel alone in it. That effort to understand and influence your emotional experience is one of the clearest psychological signs that he's all in. It shows he's not just attracted to how you look or how you make him feel, he's invested in how you feel. And here's the part that often goes unnoticed. When a man really wants to make you happy, he also becomes more vulnerable. He opens himself up to the possibility of not getting it right. That risk doesn't stop him. In fact, it drives him to try harder, to ask questions, to listen more closely, to adapt, because he knows happiness isn't a fixed formula. It's dynamic. It changes day to day. So he doesn't just want to please you once. He wants to understand you over time. That kind of emotional presence is rare, and when it shows up, it's not just a sign of affection. It's a sign that he's building something deeper, something real, something that says, your joy is worth the effort, not just today, but every day going forward.